I'd like to play you 3 clips from a discussion between Alex O'Connor and Joe Folley on the subject of where do the laws of logic come from, and then I will comment on each of the clips. But this discussion here is very important for 2 other discussions that I also will look at in subsequent episodes. So this discussion here is key. Now let's proceed.
Where do the laws of logic come from? This is a fascinating one. One thing is that when I was at uni, my specialty was mathematical logic. It was it's what I focused on during my final year and then during my master's. So it's a very interesting question. There's a lot of dispute, understandably. Some argue that logic is fundamentally empiricist in founding. So some people argue that the laws of logic are abstracted from observations. We don't see contradictions, so we have the law of non-contradiction. And
okay, 2 things I want to say about this first thing, maybe 3. The first thing is that as you continue to listen to this episode, which link is in the description below, you will see that they don't seem to be very enthusiastic about this first idea that the laws of logic are abstracted from our physical environment. For example, we don't see contradictions in nature, therefore we infer from that there is a law of logic we would call the law of non-contradiction. Now, the key problem here with that is that you cannot infer a conclusion without using the laws of logic in your inference. In other words, it seems that to even make sense, to even begin to process our sense perceptions of the physical world, we must start with some basic fundamental laws of reasoning or laws of logic. And this is the question: where do these laws of logic come from? Now, I prefer to use the term axioms of logic and mathematics. A law of logic or an axiom is a first principle. It's something from which we reason, either in mathematics or logic. We don't reason to, we can't prove these axioms or these laws of logic without using those axioms in our proof, which would be circular. So we have to start with them. We just have to take them as a foundational part of our basic operating system. And once we have that, then we can begin to make sense of the physical world. One of the laws of logic he mentioned there was the law of non-contradiction. Another one would be the causal principle. And contrary to what many people believe, the causal principle isn't just something that operates in the physical realm, in the material world of cause and effect. But if you, let's say, ask ChatGPT to explain the relationship between the causal principle and deductive logic, you will get a nice explanation there. There's a causal relationship between the premises and the conclusion. So that would be another law of logic and mathematics, is this causal principle, or this causal relationship between the premises or the axioms and then what you derive from that. Now let's continue on to see what else they say.
It's probably a bit too extreme to say the atheist cannot explain the laws of logic, but it is probably fair to say that there are genuine difficulties in grounding the laws of logic metaphysically. A lot of the time, philosophers will turn to Platonism for mathematical and logical laws to give them their grounding there. So you say that the laws of logic exist in the immaterial plane and are instantiated in the material plane. So the law of non-contradiction is out there in the Platonic realm, and in this world, it is instantiated in the fact that nothing contradicts. There are no contradictory properties. And I think that's fine. I mean, it strikes me as at least as good an explanation as the theistic one.
Okay, let's pause. I want to say 2 things. I want to challenge this idea that it's at least as good of an explanation. We're going to need a tiebreaker here. But first of all, I should just clarify what he's talking about when he's talking about this Platonic realm. So it seems as if the laws of logic, or these basic axioms of logic and mathematics, are real. In other words, they actually exist, but they're not material. And therefore, there has to be some sort of an immaterial realm, which we can call a Platonic realm. There's a real immaterial realm, and this is the origin, or this is where the laws of logic come from. So as opposed to the mind of God. So we need something to break the tie here. And I would argue that, I would point something out here, and that is the laws of logic can only be perceived by minds, and they can only be used by minds to arrive at conclusions, whether they're mathematical or logical. And so what is the best explanation for something that can only be perceived by and used by minds? And I would argue that the best explanation for the laws of logic is a mind itself, and some sort of an ultimate mind. And as soon as we introduce a mind into this Platonic realm that he talked about, we have moving from the immaterial, mindless Platonic realm to the mind of God, this ultimate mind. And when it comes to the laws of logic, I would not say this ultimate mind invented the laws of logic, but these laws of logic are attributes of this ultimate mind, and therefore they never change. And I would say that's the tiebreaker. Now, with that in mind, that underscores the importance of this discussion to two other discussions they're going to have, and that is, what is consciousness and why is there something rather than nothing? And I chose this discussion to start with first because of certain key principles that are being raised in this discussion. One more clip.
It seems prior to thought.
Yeah, exactly. It's like the trouble with any kind of grounding of the laws of logic, atheistic or theistic, is that, I mean, first of all, you're going to use logic to get there, because what else are you going to use?
Yeah.
Like, if you don't...
I hope you noticed that Alex O'Connor dropped a bombshell here, and that is the laws of logic are prior to thought, and I totally agree here. You cannot think, you cannot perform rational deduction, you cannot reason without these laws of logic as your starting point. This is a very important, especially to the next two episodes I want to use, and that's to respond to two more of their discussions. One is, the next one will be, what is consciousness? And I want to focus on the distinction between a mind and a brain, and some of the points that are being discussed here are essential to that discussion. So stay tuned, and we'll pick it up in the next discussion.